I have been studying 10 pages of Portuguese per day for the last couple of months. And I have made a practice with the Duolingo. It doesn't work. I'm serious. I'm very, very sincere person. So I never say something. I never lie. But the problem is that it doesn't work. I don't have the words to express, so I don't know. But thank you for coming back and thank you for your participation. We are going to move forward with the topic of the evaluation with the two specific instruments that we can use in our classes. So I just want to give you this statement that I really find interesting, and I found in that book that I show in the beginning, the Transformative Assessment. Rarely we can say that if a teacher takes action X, then the teacher's students will unquestionably end up achieving outcome Z. So it's very nice, and it's about the unpredictability of our intentionality to teach. So even if we have the best intentions, this doesn't mean that these best intentions will translate into the best transformative outcomes. And we need to work on this, working and reflecting on these dimensions that I would like to invite you to keep in mind for your classes. So we can shift the construct of agentic engagement of students in terms of agentic evaluators for us. How can we be agentic evaluators? So, and what this mean? This means positioning ourselves and clarify, at least for ourselves, what to observe, what to listen to. I mean, what I'm going to listen from my students. What to measure, it's very important to clarify what are the indicators that I consider for the evidence of learning from my students. Oh, Adriana. That's a good question. Thank you for pausing. So we are very, thank you. We are very familiar with the idea of explaining students our expectations. And what are the learning outcomes, or learning goals of the class? Sometimes at least this is very common in Italy, we forgot to ask our students what they expect to learn. So the idea of listening is very complementary with the idea of speaking and explaining to students. We used to explain to students what we expect from them. Sometimes we can be clearer, sometimes we can be less clear, but the problem is that we forgot often, because we do so many things, and we forgot to listen to our students about what they can expect to find taking our class. Or maybe what are the difficulties that they are finding during the process. So the idea of cultivating the listening in classroom and also the listening to our colleagues. No, Adriana, it's very important. Yeah, sure.
I usually use it in the first class to ask what they understand of the course that I'm going to work with them. I don't use the word teach. I use that we are going to study together. And sometimes they ask me, but I didn't start the course yet. How can I know? I say, well, you will say to me what you want to say. You may have any kind of expectation or idea or not idea or doubt. I don't know. Tell me.
And what happened?
Multiple answers, different answers, but I read them all. I give a sheet and they have to write to me. And sometimes I don't know what to expect, or I think it will be like this or like that, or I'm going to learn this, or I would like to learn about this. And I put a second question. what is your interest in, or what you are interested in nowadays, and try to measure the connections or the first thoughts about the topic,
Yeah.
even though can be a range of answers. And then I will try to say, oh, this, it's absolutely connected. Wait a little bit, because it's not going to be an answer in the first class. It's going to be a little bit further, and sometimes like that. That's why my question about the listen, because I don't know if the listening is to listen if they are understanding what I am explaining, the feedback or not.
Yeah, that's another point. We can unpack the dimension of listening according to multiple ways of interpreting this construct. So you pointed out the listening from the beginning and the listening during the course and the listening to collect the feedback. I can tell you also that sometimes there are mornings in which I feel too much stressed from the multiple things that I follow, that I don't have the awareness of my presence in classroom. And my students notice this, because they notice if I'm more nervous, if I am too stressed, and they notice if I take a moment to listen to them and to ask if everything is okay and if they understood what they can do together and so on. So we can have a multiple interpretation of this dimension of listening, but I really, really want to ask you to cultivate this dimension. Thank you for pointing out this. It's very important. Thank you also for the suggestions of not only taste the students' expectation of learning, but also taste the students' expectation of a connection of learning with their experience nowadays. So thank you also for this second suggestion, which is much more important, because it's how much concrete is your expectation of learning. Yeah, thank you. And finally, which outcomes we are seeking for. There was there was a professor, I don't remember his name, that during the first day raised his hand and asked, what can we do with the students that look so disengaged in classroom? I was like, thank you for telling this. Otherwise, it's only me the problem. And I teach this. So that's a huge problem. But it was very important, that question, because was like, I have these very difficulties with the bachelor's degree students. Those are younger, and sometimes they feel completely disconnected. And so when I used to work on the outcomes, I used to say, okay, seriously, beyond your intentionality and beyond your most beautiful expectations of your classroom, what concretely this student can do. Meet the students exactly where they are. So don't, how can I say, don't overestimate the process of growth of your students, because this will make you frustrated. But try to set very concrete outcomes. And try to be consistent with the outcomes that you can find for your students. And these have a huge impact on the way we design our curriculum and our course. This has a huge impact. Let's go on these tools, this repertoire of tools that we can use in our curriculum design or in our course design in order to add a tool, if we want, to the traditional or to the kind of tools that we already use in our courses, in our classes. I give you, thanks to Sarah, it's very important to work in peer with a student that can help you to be concrete, okay? And yeah, to go down to the earth. And I give you a copy of the learning activity survey during your coming back from the break. I want to ask you to fill out this survey. It's one of the most famous survey about the evaluation and the assessment of reflective and transformative outcomes. It's completely based on transformative learning theory. okay? And it's probably the most famous, the most widespread survey that is used in higher education and in formal settings in order to evaluate whether a student, a learner, has had an experience of transformation. Try to respond to this survey, thinking back to your experience as a student in a specific course, because it's really related to a specific course. So I don't know, for example, you can use this in your course in the end of the course in order to try to measure whether an experience of reflection and transformation has occurred, and if yes, for how many students? If not, why? And if it has happened, what was the factor that facilitated this experience? So try to respond to this survey. It's very easy, and it's called the Learning Activity Survey. Take 5 minutes to respond to this. And you can take away the printed copy. No, okay. More than 5, I'm sorry. Take your time. I'm sorry, take your time. Most important, just look at the items to see if they are applicable for your class. Experience as a student or as a learner. Yes, and just think about the items of the survey to see if they are usable, suitable for your class. So it's a double reflection. So I don't know if you ever finish it, or maybe still in progress. But okay, just another couple of minutes because I want to share with you some reflections about these tools. They are similar to the first ones. Yeah. Yeah. Or they, well, it's a kind of, how can I say? So the questions are pretty similar. They want to check if you have had the experience of a transformation because of the course, because of the class, or because of another experience. Yeah, but actually, if you score, if you want to have a score for the questionnaire, the first page is the one that apply for having a score in terms of grading of perspective transformation. It's called the PT index, perspective transformation index. So who wants to start to share how he or she has found these items? Very simple items, like super simple. It's very based on the theory of transformative learning and the idea of measuring, trying to find a measure for the outcomes of a transformation. As I was mentioning before, if you want to use this for research purpose, there's also the guide, the metrics for the score. So you can say, for example, that one person or a group of people report the PT index of 3, which represents the maximum. Yeah, I understood. Yeah, yeah. So you can say, if you want to use this for research purpose, you can say how much and to what extent a group of people that has experienced a particular path or a particular program changed their meaning perspectives. If you want to use this for teaching purpose, you can use this in order to try to assess in a very simple way if your students have experienced a reflective or a transformational experience with your class. So I used to have this questionnaire in the end of each of my courses, asking my students to fill out this survey in order to see if there are any kind of distribution and any kind of perspective transformation in the group of students that I have in my class. What did you find? If there is something interesting for you in this instrument, do you think that it might be applied in your class? In the Portuguese version, for sure. I was telling this to Janette. I have the Word version. It's changeable. It's translatable, so I can provide them the Word version, and you can translate and use on your own. Go ahead. And teach me how to pronounce your name.
My name is Rogério. Rogério. The survey in the engineering, I think the students will answer, but with a technical, high technical students, some questions they may maybe stay in doubt why. Yes. Yes. They'll think for what propose,
Yeah.
why answer. But I think they will answer, they will, but they will question also.
They will question also why we are asking them
Yeah.
this. That's very important also because also my students, well, just a few of them, but they say you are asking private questions.
Yeah.
So I give them for sure the possibility to not respond. And the fact is that the questionnaire try to differentiate whether you have experienced something transformational because of your life experience or because of the learning program and the course. And so if you say, my parents divorced, it's very difficult to say that it was the course transformational. I mean, it's a huge personal dilemma. But that's important. We should keep this in mind if we want to use this in our courses, that we can leave the possibility to not respond at all. We cannot put this as mandatory, for example, or at least we can say you can respond to just the first page, in which there are information about the course and not personal information. Thank you. Oh, please, would you like to use this with your technical students and let me know what they respond?
Okay. Okay.
I'm very curious about. Yeah. Someone else? George?
I'm still figuring out if if it would be interesting to present to my students and how sincere they would be in answering all the questions. I have to figure out. I'm not sure.
Because you think that your students can respond, oh, everything changed, professor.
I think law students always try to answer what they think is the expected answer presented by the professor. So I'm not sure it would be very, very useful because of that.
But I think you are imagining that I have to answer that I change because it will add something to my grade. And this is important. It's not for grading, okay? It's just for get to know what changed in the end of the course. This is very important.
Yeah, no, I know it, but I'm figuring out, I'm still thinking if they would answer what it's in their hearts or what they think is the best possible answer. I think it's inevitable among law students. They are always, when the judge asks something in a court, a lawyer will always try to think what is the best answer possible to that judge.
And I think a good point here, the students, our students are not used to have this kind of question. They never was asked to reflect about this. So in the beginning, you can have some resistance, but with the time and explaining why you are doing this can be a good way to make them be more open and more honest.
Yeah.
I think so, I don't know.
Certainly, yeah, certainly, I think so.
That's a very good question. And oh, thank you, Professora Jeanette, because it's a very good question. And the other stuff is that if we don't start, a culture of evaluation would never spread out. So it's very important at least to start. Maybe they will lie. Maybe there was some kind of a social desirability in their responses, but it's very important at least to start to pose these questions to students. At least to find a way in which the reflection on the learning process is not just based on our evaluation and observation, but it can be also based on their self-observation. Maybe it's a very important thing, at least to start. Maybe it's a process instead of an immediate achievement. That's true. Thank you. Adriana, and you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think there's someone.
Maybe you are before, please.
Okay. I just want
John.
To, I just want to add a point to your reflection. A lot of students ask me what is the right and the wrong answer to the question. And teaching different philosophers, I always have to tell them, you don't need to agree with the philosopher, and you don't need to take my position or my stake on this or that. When I'm talking about Marx, I want to be the best Marxist in the world and to explain to you. When I'm talking about Hobbes, I want to be the best Hobbesian, no matter what I think about this guy. And for them, it's no, professor, but we want to know exactly what is right. And I say, no, there's no right and wrong answer. You have to show me that you understand the philosopher, his or her thoughts, and then you make a point about, do you agree, do you disagree, do you look at it in a critical level? So I think with this questionnaire, I would expect this kind of answer. What is the right or wrong answer that I should, and I have to, no, there's no right or wrong answer. Tell me about your experience, tell me about your process, and then we can follow on that.
Yeah, that's so important. Thank you. Also for the taking a different perspectives.
Pardon me?
Also for taking a different perspectives from their perspective. It's so important. Thank you so much.
I would like to ask you, in your experience, what does it happen in class? Because I'm thinking about my classes, maybe I will have different behaviors. And I don't know, all day in your classes respond individually or all try to combine in peers or in groups, the answers, or see this and say to you, all of this, I'm gonna die. I'm telling what I used to hear, but I would like to know your experience, because your experience is going to teach me.
No. I can tell you that, so I have several experiences, and the first, but also the last one is much more like, it's an individual, it's not under evaluation, you will not be graded for this, it's not a collective effort, it's an individual effort. And I always repeat this, it's an individual effort. I know that you want to talk, I know that we use very conversational-based methodologies in another time. This time is just individual, you will be not evaluated. But, well, I can tell you that the last semester was very hard for me because I have 4 classes of more than 200 students. And always trying to implement much more interactive methods and much more interactive process of evaluation was really challenging because of the time management, okay? So what was interesting is that in the end of the semester, one of the 4 classes, I got, with this survey, more than 40% of students that say, Professor, we really appreciate your effort, but we didn't change our mindset. They say, you are a good professor. You are a very empathic professor. We know that you are passionate about it. We recognize this. They put this in the evaluation. They say the professor is expert, passionate. We look that she is very caring about us. There has been a change in the mindset? No. I was like, what should I appreciate? The authenticity, their openness, their transparency. They trust me. They don't know that I'm getting really frustrated about this. They say, you can resist, Professor Romano, to know that for part of us, nothing but it's very difficult to change our beliefs. And finally I said, okay, just just appreciate the fact that you create a climate of trust and openness, and students really believe that you can read these things without having any kind of revenge against them. So I said maybe this is a kind of outcomes that I could find in this class.
But I don't know. I wasn't at the class, but I think I was not in the class. But I think maybe the reflection and the results that I heard you. I thought I did the reflections, but I still believe in my belief.
Exactly.
But there is a reflection in the end. It's
There is.
natural and it's achievement too, because I had the reflection to see if I agree or not, but I think about it.
Yes.
So I think this class doesn't agree with the subjects or the ways or the meanings, I don't know, but they think about it. So
Yeah, yeah.
you accomplished.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. Thank you. But it requires a lot of self-reflection also for me
Yes.
to survive. Because I spent all my Sunday and Sunday night to work for this, and I just to say this on my Sunday night, on my weekend for preparing. But that's good. Yeah. And they say we want to keep our beliefs. Thank you, Professor. Yeah. But it is the kind of, yeah, go ahead, Lucas.
I had a lot of difficulty to answer this because it seems to me that it asks for a moment that you change. And it's really difficult. I was thinking when I was at university at the undergraduation, and I entered with 17 and we're out with 22. It's impossible a person in these 5 years doesn't change something. Of course, you're changing, but it's not exactly moment. It's a period of it. So I had a really difficult to say to answer this, thinking, well, what was the teacher? Well, several teachers, and what was the action or the exercise or something like that. So I don't know if it's possible to
change just for one learning
exactly.
experience.
That's one point. Now, another point is that they are talking. You can sometimes keep your beliefs.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And for example, I was talking about an example. In the first year of the university, they took all of us, and at that time it was really innovative, to a periferia in São Paulo, to Islã, and to see what people live and things like that. And we took all the semesters working on that. And it was really impressive for us, students, younger students. But in fact, don't change my beliefs because first of university, I was concerned about those problems and things like that. So I keep, in fact, with my beliefs that was really problems that we have to solve, etc., etc. So sometimes the transformation is not exactly so the point of view or something. It's sometimes to confirm what you believe or something like that. As you were saying, I reflect about that, of course, and
I still want to stick on my beliefs.
yeah. Sometimes.
Thank you. Oh, I can tell you that what Lucas said is shared by much literature on transformative learning. The kind of dichotomy between one moment, one experience that can be really disorienting, and the other side, the idea of a much more cumulative process and a much more systematic process of engaging in reflection that could lead to a perspective transformation. So you pointed out a good moment. This questionnaire is based on the assumption that after a certain kind of a learning experience, you can gain some kind of changes in your beliefs and in your actions. But we should be careful about emphasizing just one moment experience, because it's a systematic process of engaging in self-reflection and collective reflection. And the other point that you underlined about keeping the beliefs, it's something that we should, it requires a little bit more discussion, because there are some points, especially what Brookfield called core beliefs, that are beliefs in which we recognize ourselves and our sense of identity. For example, gender beliefs, ethical beliefs, religious beliefs. And if you touch these kind of beliefs, people can maybe engage in a process, or in a dialectic process, in a process of reflection, but they come back to their inner beliefs, because for them they are very identity, where they are part of their identity. And I can tell you that we found this kind of, when George said that they were speaking about euthanasia, I replied to them that, for example, we needed to pay really careful about speaking of some topic in our university in Italy, because you know that we are very Catholic place, very Catholic nation, and so you need to be very respectful about the religious beliefs of Catholic people that believe that euthanasia is something which is against the a palabras de Dios, okay? So it's an example of the fact that maybe you can engage people in a critical reflection, but it doesn't mean that they will change their perspectives, because maybe they really want to keep their perspective about that thing. Go ahead, Jeanette, please.
Just to complete, what I think is this kind of instruments, of tools, help us, because all this discussion in our classroom should be about the theme, what we are teaching them, about what we want to them to reflect in regarding this discipline. So when I asked, something that I did, or some experiences that I made to my students go through, had an impact in their way of thinking, in their perceptions of the world. They became more open to see the world through another direction. So it's hard for some of them, but you have to keep in mind that you gave them an exercise and experiences, a lot of videos to watch, a lot of reading, a lot of discussions, and you want to know, some of these experiences made you reflect differently, move you. So you are not asking for general transformation, but the transformation regarding your pedagogical intervention.
That's very important.
Because otherwise it would be a psychological activity, and it's not, it's pedagogical activity. And I want to know that something that I plan to them, move them to growth, to think in a different way. So I think if you keep this discussion attached to what we want to move the students regarding that specific subject or discussion in the classroom, would be easier. Yeah. But I know sometimes they change despite of us. Most of the time they change despite of us. But I want to know something that I did made the difference.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you. And really, really great and important. And most of all, we can also choose just to have a very short 3 questions instead of a full version of the survey. I mean, that's an example of the survey, but we can adapt. And if we consider to be focused just on the pedagogical dimension of what they learn with us, we can adjust this. So it's very flexible, and you can use it according to what you have in mind. Yeah, it's very important. Just another instrument that I want to ask you to look at is the Tropos. It's the transformative outcomes and processes scale that you find in your handout. It should be like, maybe in the final part of the handout, you should find the Tropos. It's a list of items. Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you to look at this instrument. It's also, it's pretty different from the other one. In this case, you have to express your level of agreement or disagreement with a scale from 1 to 5. And in this case, you needed to think back to your experience as a student, because this instrument was prepared and tested with graduate students and postgraduate students. So if you look at the items of the questionnaire, you can try to respond just to see how they are. But you can see that there are a part about transformative outcomes, but there is much more a part about the social support perceived by the students, and how the students are willing to question their held beliefs. So take a couple of minutes to look at the items. You can bring it with you.
Se vocês lembram, num dos fóruns eu trouxe o Roberto Cox, que foi quem fez montou esse questionário. Acho que foi no ano passado? No ano passado, é.
So don't worry to fill out completely, because I know that it's very leader. And so just a short reflection together about what can be found of interest in this instrument. If anything, if there's something interesting in this instrument. So you see that, first of all, it's pretty different the type of answer. Instead of saying yes, no, you can grade the level of agreement and disagreement. So if you want to adjust something, maybe you can use some items of this instrument in a very simplified form to ask your students to grade the level of agreement and disagreement. And this leaves more flexibility. Oh, Bartolomeo.
In psychology, in some contexts, we use those sorts of questionnaires. In my experience, it's mostly on ambulatory and psychiatrical care. But when we use it, there's usually we have some calculus and an output scale. In this sort of scenario, do you have one of those? Oh, okay. Okay. Ah, okay. And something that would be interesting for the last discussion that we were having, for the students that are more reactive to answering those more specific and personal questions, something that we can say to them is that they are mostly social demographic, and we are not going to create inferences or correlations or any sort of casualties between answers. Those are the things that mostly make students more comfortable. In psychology courses, we use this a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Great suggestion. Thank you. Something else? Lucas.
Now, it's just a question. For me, it seems that it's for the answers is easier. It's more useful, this one, but I don't know to tabulate. I don't know how to say it. Tabular. To get the answers, to analyze the answers. Yeah, the table. How you do it? Because it's more difficult. Huh? You have grades of answers.
Yeah, actually, I use this with the Google form because in this case, the answers are produced already in an Excel sheet. And so you can see if we, well, I don't use this for research purpose, but for educational purpose, for teaching purpose. And I can see the kind of distribution of answers in that classroom. And this is helpful for gathering feedback about how the students are reacting on the classroom and on, for sure, on the content of the classroom. Thank you. Other perceptions? Yeah, I don't know if I answer. Okay.
I'm a professor in engineer, so it's more difficult for our students to reflect about themselves. So I don't think they would engage with this. I don't know how to make them answer and to think about these things because they are not used to do this, to reflect about themselves. So no, I can make the questions for them, but I don't know, because when I was responding to the questions, I was thinking about this. A lot of the questions that are here, I have thought about because I go to a psychiatrist, so I had to think one moment in my life about this, but I don't think they think about this stuff, and they don't know how to answer, and they don't know how to respond to this because they are not used to do this. Yeah, they are logical, so they think logically, so it's difficult to.
Oh, thank you, Lija. Lija, thank you for pointing out this, because this means that we can try, we can make a try, and we can see what is the kind of responses from our students. And what you are telling about the logical thinking is something we made some focus group with STEM students and STEM teachers because of the European project. And for example, the STEM teachers said in the focus group, we don't know how to develop a kind of self-care and self-reflective dimensions with our students, especially with engineering. Well, they were representative of engineering and biology and chemistry, and they said, we tried, but we know that our students want to be engaged in some ways, but we don't know how to do. So I can find some similarities with what you were just telling before. And so I can say, let's try. And another important thing is that on next Tuesday, we will see much more qualitative-based tools. So we are now discussing the quantitative-based survey that we can integrate, while in the second workshop, we will focus just on a qualitative. Maybe with the qualitative, some of them are based on the observation of the teacher instead of a self-report, and maybe some of those qualitative tools based on the observation of the teacher can suit better with one of your classes. So let's see in the range of tools that we have, which can be the best one that could fit with our class of students. Silvia.
Research about the financial behavior of the students. So I have some experience that so many questions is so tired for them to answer, and then they always put everything. Yes. I finished. May I come to coffee? No. Okay, let's continue to the class. So I understand now that it's important to ask 5 questions or 5 sentences that you agree or disagree, and they are thinking about these 5 questions, and they are so truly to answer. It's more gratificate to us to understand what they are thinking about. Like this, why it's same? What's the difference of 5 and 6 questions? I don't know. No. So I have some experience to engineering students. I have experience to law in students. I have experience to my students, economist, accounting, administration.
Accountability, yeah.
Yeah, everyone. So, and they always like short questions. And they think about and come to me and say, well, your question is so awful. I understand that I didn't do this all my life. I have to change. So this is important to me. The question, the student have to think about this, and they always feel so bad because they didn't do what I'm asking him to
do.
say, to
So
do.
Silvia, it's important to create your version of the 5-based questions. You know what? What will be very interesting is which will be the 5 core questions that you choose.
See. Yes, I
So,
understand.
yeah, so this will be the challenge, not to use the full version, but to find your 5 core questions. And because according to the 5 core questions that you will choose, that's your representation of transformative outcomes.
Yes.
That's very interesting. And please work on this and report us. Maybe also 4 core questions.
No, 5. 5.
Oh, thank you. Oh, seriously, it's really interesting. That will be your challenge. 5 of my 5 core questions, no more, nothing more, very essential, but in that questions, there will be your effort for transformative teaching. Very, very great. Davi?
Kind of activity like a part of evaluate process of students, because in my experience accounting science is very technical in lot of part, but I applied 2 activities with technique is necessary, and my third activities I put relate reflexive related the student to describe the experience that most like it and not like it, the content that student more learning and other things. I think it's I think the results are good to me, because a process of evaluating to a student and to me, my process of learning, my process of teaching. Sorry, and
No, you were, but it was a good lapsus, just to follow Bartolomeo as a psychologist. Yeah.
I like of psychology, the process of psychology and the process of teaching, because it's a good opportunity to know when the students are thinking about the content is possible to apply the content in my day by day, in my professional area, in my life, because the life with the professional area is the same thing in the grand
Yeah.
part of the student.
Yeah.
And so I think it's possible to put the kind of activity like a part of evaluate process. It's important to the student, oh, it's a series I have to do. It's a series I have to do because it's a part of evaluated process. I need to do that, because if I don't do, my professor is, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a very point that maybe we should discuss also in the next workshops, because this has pros and contras. For example, the contras is that the responses of students can be completely modified according to what they think that you expect. And the other stuff is that most students can consider this task as a very mandatory task and just say, yes, yes, everything changed, compliment, professor, and so on. Parabéns, parabéns, parabéns. Okay? Okay? And so I told that there's pros and contras. It can be part of the task if there is a very settled culture of evaluation and culture of self-assessment. But maybe this will require time. So I don't know here, but it can require a lot of times to establish an authentic culture of assessment. What do you think, Professora Jeanette?
No, I agree. We are trying to implement this kind of tools here to help students to reflect and in a volunteer way. Yes, because they see value in stop and think about what does it mean to me? It's not just what I know, but what does it mean to me? Why this is important? Why I should be thinking about this question? And one thing you said, oh, sometimes the students say, I like it, I don't like it. It's not about like. It's about, yes, how much it means to me. Who I am, who I want to be. I want to be in the periphery, I don't know how to say. Periphery, thank you. It's the periphery, but or for me, it's better to think about something completely different. I don't relate with this kind of word that he is engaged to. It's about knowing myself. So for me, I prefer to keep it as something that students choose if they will do or not to do. Yeah, and I think here, these questions and these questionnaires can be very, very adaptable. If in the end of the semester or activity, what we call here IAT, Transformative Learning Initiative, you can choose, wow, how can I make a question for reflection based on these tools? It can be inspirational. You don't have to follow a questionnaire. You just pick ideas to make a question for them, think about how much this experience moved me to another direction or not, change my, who I am, my identity, my beliefs, regarding whatever I want to make them think about.
Slide. It's the way of the students to communicate what you think, what I feel, what I use in the filter. How do you see? How can I see?
I like of that. I dislike of that. I perceive it's necessary to professor perceive.
Yeah, but if they say I like it or I dislike it, no problem. But I think our question should not be, did you like it or didn't you? So because the question is not if you like it, it was something meaningful for you or not.
Right.
It's just like that. The answer, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about
Yes.
That's a good point. So, according to this, I want to ask you, the workshop is going to end because I was respectful for your time and for your patience to be here until this time. Next workshop will be in the morning. There will be always pausa café? Okay. So can we promise the reward of the pausa café? We can promise this, and which will be much more focused on the qualitative tools, like the rubric. We will go in depth with the rubric because I know that you are implemented the system of the MaxStellar project and the MaxStellar rubric. So it's very important to learn how to be confident with this tool. Before say goodbye, we want to give you just white sheet and asking you, what could we improve for next time? Not what are your takeaways, but what could we do better for the next workshop? The responses are completely anonymous. You can just leave the short sheet there, because the short paper there, and I would never recognize the writing. Never. Never. You can trust me, never. But that's very important. Now it's time for you to evaluate us and tell us what we can do better. And then we can say goodbye.
Please ask the question again. Because I have a doubt, you or me,
What can we do better or
no,
you?
what the facilitator can do better next time. No, you are perfect, I mean. It's Friday night, 7 p.m. You are here. The best students I can have ever met. You are perfect. You cannot do anything better. No, that's It's true. It's what we can do it better.
Se não gostarem, não fala pra ninguém.
Administração tarde e noite. Mas a pessoa que eu tenho na lista,
I want to announce that in the last workshop we have we will have a performance table.
Obrigada se você não quer. Obrigada. Eu estava descobrindo